Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to askNK. Today we are looking at the brand new release from the folks at Sharif, which is Affinity 1.9. Now Affinity 1.9 comes with a couple of stuff and we're definitely going to go ahead and take a look at them. Meanwhile, for those who would like to get Affinity, right now you can actually go ahead and grab Affinity for 50% off. Now this is to help the community due to the whole pandemic, and a lot of people would like to get these tools in their hands but probably don't have the buck, and this is very thoughtful of them for doing this. Now something else which they've done sometime last year is they also tried as much as possible to do some challenge to support the community. Now for those who would also like to take a look at these things, they already created an Instagram hashtag known as hashtag 100 days 100 commissions, and you can simply go ahead and take a look at this astonishing and beautiful work of art that tons of artists have put together. Meanwhile, for those who are also thinking about trying Affinity for the first time before even making a purchase, right now they are also doing something pretty lovely, and I think by far they are like one of the best people that have actually tried doing this. They are giving out a 90-day free trial for anyone who would like to try out Affinity before they sink their teeth into it and purchase it. Now with this said, let's get right into it and talk about some of the cool features and interesting things that you can now see with Affinity. So Affinity has a product line which includes the Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer, and also the Affinity Publisher. Now lots of people would work with Affinity Publisher compared to InDesign, which is a direct response to Adobe InDesign. Right now, the folks at Affinity are also working on a very nice tool set, which is going to be the Web Waver, and this tool is going to come in very handy for creating things like websites and also web documents. So what's new with the whole Affinity line of suit? Now, one of the first cool stuff which we're going to take a look at is something with Affinity Designer. So Affinity Designer is a beautiful tool which you can use for creating vector and also raster graphics. Now, the beautiful thing about the new release is that there are some very nice stuff. Meanwhile, before we talk about the cool things that are available and how to go pass through them, let's take a look at the 5 things that you need to know with Affinity 1.9. Now, there's a contour tool that is now available. There is also several selection types, so you can now select by theme and also by object. There's also a create custom brush from pixels, linking external packages, studio presets, and so on and so forth. So with this said, let's take a look at the very first one, which is the contour. And yep, for those who are just getting started into Affinity, this app is like one of the most favorite vector apps I've seen so far. So for you to actually get some things happening, most of the tool sets that you have here are quite procedural, and that's just, you know, one of the beautiful things for me. I kind of think that this works way better because we've already done a comparison video previously, so I'm going to link that in the description so you can take a look at that. I kind of think that this does a better job than Illustrator in most cases. So right now I just dragged out a cog, and you can get that by clicking right here and selecting that from here. Once you have this selected, so let's get that cog tool one more time. Once you have that selected, you have all of these pointers to do some stuff. So you can do things like that, and you know, you can push this from one point to another. So what is this brand new tool which is known as the contour tool? Now the contour tool actually helps you create some sort of bounds across your model, or you know, across your vector. So maybe you want to kind of tighten things up, or you want to expand them. Yes, you can. And it also does have a couple of tool sets up here, you know, properties that you can play with. So depending on the kind of contour you like to make, you can use this to do that. So we can increase this all the way up, and we can set this to that contour type, and we can also set it to contour type like this. Also, there is a cap type that you can play with, so we can do that. And you know, you want to get some softer rounded cap, of course you can do this, and you can also get this happening. But then let's take a look at something which is even more interesting. So let's say, for example, we go ahead and create this. So if we create this and let's say we make a copy, I'm just going to scale this one down and also make another copy like so. We can select 1, 2, and 3, go all the way to layers and make a compound layer. Now, what we've looked at is that if you select this object and you push this all the way up, it does that, right? But once you move this down and you go back and you select this object, let's say you select from this drop down here, which includes the group. So if you select any of these things and hold down Alt and drag, just look at this effect. Pretty cool, huh? So you can see this lovely effect, and you can use this for a lot of things. So I can, you know, just imagine how much things you can do with this. So you can use this and create some very lovely and beautiful looking stuff. So this is just one of the things that this contour tool can help you get. Now, something else which you can do is, if you're into typography or into text, this is also going to come in very handy. So for example, we can type the word OK and go over to a section. Let's say we use an impact, for example, and let's drop this one a little bit low. So we're just going to drop this about a point like so. With this done, most of the times you might want to have that extra border. All right, so you might want to have that extra border for things that you're working with. And what we can do with this is super simple. So I'm just going to drag this one all the way out so that we can see that, because initially it was within the contour and that was why I had this same effect. So we're just going to go ahead and drag this one out. So now that we can see what we have, we can move this over to a point, hit Ctrl and J on the keyboard to make a copy, and we can choose to give this a different color. So let's say the color we want to give this is maybe a color like so. So we could just give it a different color. Maybe we should go with black. Black looks good. And now we can select this other one, which is beneath this, select the contour tool, and with that we can now create some very lovely stuff. Now once this is done, this is not where it ends. All right, so once it's done, for you to commit the contour tool and be like, this is exactly what I'm going for, you can now click on the bake appearance, and automatically it's going to bake the appearance and give you this as a vector image. So in most cases, you're definitely going to find this one very useful, and you can proceed to start working with it. Now with this done, something else which is very interesting to see is when you're working with Affinity Designer, you might probably be wondering, how do you set up your layout, or you know, something which is considered as workspace in other apps. Right now, this is known as Studio when you're working here in Affinity. So they have now included an extra feature where you can now create your own studio preset, and this is across the entire packages that you have. So depending on what you want, you can now add and create your own kind of preset. So let's say I want something that has to do with characters. I'm just going to drag that right over here, and maybe I'm looking for something else that has to do with maybe style or so. We can also drag that. All right, we have style already, so maybe we can use a snapshot. We can also get the snapshot feature right here. So if this is the kind of workspace I want to always come back to, I can go over to where we have the view, go down here to where we have presets, click on add, and save that preset. So I can call this new, click on OK, and at any point in time, once I go over to view and go over to the presets, you would notice I have that right there. So you can create as much stuff as you want and also have fun doing this. So with this said, let's take a look at something else that I know lots of you guys would love. Have you ever worked with any of this graphic design app at any point in time? You just wish, like, if only I could select all of the curves at the same time and give it a certain effect. Or maybe you're wondering, if only I could select all of the text at the same time and give it a certain effect. Yeah, now that is something that you don't need to bother about, as it's now super possible right here in Affinity. So let's say I type this as 001, you know, that's what I want, and I'm trying to find that curve. I don't even know where that curve is. You know, I can simply go ahead and try guessing around where it is. Instead of traveling here, we can go over to select and say we want to select based off object, and we say we want to select based off curves, and we can select just the curves. And right now we can now select all the curves that exist. So I can be like, all right, so this is the curve I want, and maybe I would like to give this curve something else, like maybe a stroke. So let's go ahead and attach a stroke to that. So something else is I can select based off colors and also based off, you know, the shape type or the property type that I'm looking for. So if we go back to where we have the select, you can already see that we have all of this. So in case you want to select shapes, you can just simply click and all the shapes within your scene can be selected, or within your canvas. Now this is very, very useful for most cases, as sometimes you don't want to go through and start searching for these things. All you need to do is go over to your select, go to select object, and you can select some stuff. This is by far very, very lovely. Now something else which is awesome and also very lovely is that they have a same select same feature. So how does this one work? So how this one works is simple. Let's say I grab all of this selected and I would like to select something. So if I want to select based off the same thing, you know, I don't want to go through and select several stuff. I would like to select based off the same fill color and all that. I can simply select the object, go over to select, go down here and say I want to select based off the same fill color. So same fill color, these two get selected. If I do the same here, let's say I grab that selection and I go over here, I want to select based off the same fill color, and that gets selected. So this way you can now do some very interesting things. So let's say for all of the blues that we have, we want to add a couple of noise to them. So what happens is I can select all of that. Instead of doing this one after the other, I can jump over to the noise section, and by the way, if you cannot see this noise, click on this button to change from opacity to noise, and right here I can start adding noise. And I can also switch and select every single thing that I want and give them a particular, outline. So let's say I want to add some outline to this, I can also choose to do that like so, and then start making some very interesting decisions. So you could see how easy this is going to save you and how much things that you can create by just simply using this form of selection. So huge stuff that these folks have created. And with this said, there are also some very cool features. For example, creating custom brushes from pixel layers, linking, and also we've talked about the presets. And yep, for those who would like to also, play with straightening their curves or playing with the nodal tool, right now, these things are things that you can do with Affinity Designer. Meanwhile, Affinity Photo also has a couple of things. So if we go over to Affinity Photo, there are certain things that you can do right now, and they include linking layers, and this is going to be very huge for most of the people that would want to get things up and running. There's also the astrophotography stacking, there's a hardware acceleration for Windows, and this is for those who have GPU, you want to get things working faster. There's also a pattern layer system. Meanwhile, we've already looked at studio preset, and that exists across all of this. And yes, there's a live liquify, a lot improvement, and also external linking. So let's take a look at some of the things that now exist with Affinity Photo. So with Affinity Photo open here, let me simply close the previous file and let's take a look at something. Now, one of the most important things that I would want you guys to see is the linking. And the linking happens in a very, very lovely form. So let's say, for example, I would want to link several things together. How this can work is very easy. I'll start off with a very simple vector, and then we'll progress and look at something else. So if I go in and I pick a pen, so let's press the P key, and I pick a pen tool from here, and I click 1, 2, 3, and 4, and create a very simple stroke, I could choose to give this a fill. So let's add a fill to this and leave the stroke the way it is. Now if I make a copy of this, holding down Alt, click and drag, you would notice I have two objects. All right, now these two objects that I have, nothing is funny with them. Now I can simply go in here and click on this button, select the nodal tool, and use this nodal tool to control this on its own. But then if you would like to control all of these things by themselves, let's say for example you want to do some symmetrical things and you would like to control this, I could simply rotate this about a point like so, and maybe position it right about here. And maybe we should do the same for that. So I'm also going to rotate this one about a point like this. So maybe we can just simply rotate these two like that. So once I have these two selected, for those who would want to manipulate these things and get good results from them, you can now easily do this. So how do you do that? What we need to do is we need to go over to where we have the view, go down to where we have the studios, and I'm going to bring out the link. So there is a brand new window which exists right now, which is called links. And what does this do? What this does is very interesting. With this selected, I can now easily choose to link this other curve, which is the curve on the base, to this one. Now what we're going to look at is if I would like this to be linked over to vector, I can link the vector curves, I can link the fill parameter, I can link the outline parameter, and so on and so forth. So let's simply keep this at vector curve so that you guys can see what we're doing. So once that is done, if I go over to the nodes and I click on this button right now, if I start moving this, you can see all of the movie magic. All right, so you can see all this movie magic, and this is very, very interesting. Meanwhile, if I also go ahead and select this and change the color, you'd notice the color doesn't change because we haven't gotten that linked. Now if we want to have that linked across this, it's very easy, as we can just click and drag and drop that right here. And what happens is once I have this object selected and I start making changes to the colors, that color automatically starts changing. So this is very huge, and it's going to change a lot of dynamics and how people get to work with stuff. Now with this said, this is not the only cool thing that you can get. So I would simply go over and take a look at the welcome page so that we can quickly load up a very cool file. So we have this here, and for performance, you can see that the performance is very, very nice. You know, it's not laggy. We have all this lovely stuff that we want. It's not laggy at all. So what I would like to show you guys is the linking feature doesn't just work with vectors alone. The linking feature works across everything. So a very good example is if I scroll all the way to, let's look for the hair. So if I scroll all the way to the hair, and let's say within this part, I would like to add an adjustment layer. Now with this selected, let's actually select something. So if we select this and choose to throw in an adjustment layer, we can throw in a hue and saturation just for the sake of this demonstration. So with that there, I can choose to play with the hue, and this is the hue I want to go for, and I can simply close that. Now, once I have this going, you'll probably be like, okay, so what's the huge thing here? The huge thing here is for everything that you have now, you can simply make a linked duplicate. Now with this linked duplicate, you can now choose to pick this up. And by the way, you would notice that we have this right here. All right. So we can now choose to pick this from there and transfer it to something else. So let's say we want this to be right here. And this is also another thing with Affinity. The beautiful thing, or one of the beautiful things with Affinity, is you can see this in real time. I mean, once you simply start moving this back and forth, you can tell where things are going to be happening. So we can position this right about the point like so. Let me move this over to that. Let's move this upwards. Okay, so maybe we want this to be right about a point like that. So once we have this here, all we need to do is just double click on one of that. All right, so double click on the hue and saturation adjustment layer, and whatever adjustment we make right here happens across to the other adjustment. So you don't necessarily need to have the same adjustment and, you know, redo it over and over again. You just need to do it one time and have these things happen across different stuff. So this is very, very huge. So I really love the idea that this thing is something that they've considered and implemented. This is definitely going to save a lot of people time and enhance their workflow once they start playing with these tools. Now with this said, let's also jump back a bit and look at something even a little bit more interesting. So one of the cool things that we can look at now is the fact that there is now a brand new pattern tool. So there is a pattern layer tool that is now available here. So once you go over to your layers, go over to where you have new pattern layer, you'll be able to see this. So I'm just going to increase the file size to 512 by 512. So let's grab this as 512 512, click on OK, and there you have it. Now it must not be restrained to this. You can change the file size however you want, or, you know, the pattern size, you can change it however you want. For those who like to have this either as squares, or maybe you want to have it as something else, yep, you can also do these things by yourself, and you can resize these things regardless. So depending on what you're looking for, depending on what you're going for, you can have fun playing with this. So what I'm going to do next is I would like to show you guys how this patterning thing works. So all you have to do is press B on your keyboard and you would be able to switch to your brush. Now if I start increasing the brush, you'll start noticing that we have these patterns, and from here I can start creating stuff. So let's say I want to create a pattern like so, and maybe I want to create another pattern right like this. You can see that we have that. So if we zoom all the way out, you can start noticing that pattern, and we can also have some pattern tools going like this. So let's say we want to add some patterns like that. So this is also very lovely. So instead of creating these patterns and thinking about how you can seamlessly make these things work, you can easily just work with this and get the most out of it. Now, beautiful thing as well is at any point in time, you can scale this, and you can scale this all the way down. And this is going to help a lot of people who are into maybe pattern creation, or you would like to, you know, create some things that can serve as the base background of your graphic art. And this is going to ensure that you have something that you can work with in a much more non-destructive form. So tons of features and tons of possibilities are here. And while we speak about tons of possibilities that are here, let's grab a brand new file. All right, so let's get a brand new scene or new file, and let's take a look at something else. Now, most of you guys probably don't know that there is this beautiful feature that exists in Affinity. So for this example, I'm just going to grab a simple car. So let's search for car. You can actually search for stuff from Unsplash, Pixels, and also Pixabay. So you can search for beautiful stuff from there. And for this, I will simply grab this Volkswagen Unsplash. So let's get that there, and I will simply also do some things like select the object, hold down Control to scale this down. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I would like to show you guys one cool new feature. So there is a new live Liquify tool that is now existing in Affinity. Now, what does this tool do? Now, you may have noticed that folks at Sharif, creators of Affinity, try as much as possible to give you that tool set that would help you work in a much more non-destructive form. Now, this is why we are looking at the live tools. So they have always had a live tool in Affinity, but lots of people don't really know. And how you can access that is by simply going over to layers. Then down here, you would notice that we have live filter. Now, if you go over to live filter, there's tons of live filters that you can work with. Now, what does this really mean? Now, with the live filter, for example, you'll be able to have access to work with your designs in a stacked form. So stacked form simply means that you have things that you can stack right here instead of baking them directly to the image. So right here, I can start increasing things like the radius, and you can start seeing that. So I can increase the radius for the motion blur that I'm going for, and I can also change this. Now, at any point in time, I am not comfortable with whatever effect I'm going for, I can always turn this off and still have that image. Now, what they have done is they've actually taken all of these cool features and they've implemented that into the Liquify tool. So if we go over to the start, you would now notice that we have Liquify. If I click on the Liquify, it takes us over to a new page, and right here we can actually reduce the brush size and we can liquify this. So I can simply, distort this just a little bit, maybe just get something interesting out of it. So we can distort this about the point like so. So for those who would like to have distortion that they can manipulate, or you want to have access to tools that you can work with in a little bit non-destructive form, or have them stacked so that you can be able to control their intensity and all that stuff, this live tool set that's available in Affinity would get you up to speed. So with this here, we can do some very beautiful and interesting things by simply using this. So once you're done, simply click on the done tool and this would come right here. Now, if you want to see what you have previously, turn this off and you can see that. And if you want to see what you have now, you can turn this back on. And you can also choose to play with opacity, play with the normals, and get some lovely things happening for you. Now, all of the things that we've talked about Affinity is super cool, but one thing which is also super awesome is the fact that you can now convert anything directly in Affinity to a brush. So if you're thinking about creating brushes, you can now simply create brushes. And this is also the same thing which is available in Affinity Designer. Now, for those who are looking for graphic design tools that can help them get started, maybe you just want to break out from the Adobe ecosystem, Affinity is probably the best tool that you should take a look at. Tons of cool features are here. And yes, for those who would like to take a look at some of the features that are available in Publisher, there are a couple of features right here, as Publisher now has a save as package that can help you transfer stuff. There's a data merge and also the beautiful PDF pass-through. For those who are also feeling excited, or maybe you just don't want to use InDesigner, you want to try something else, you can now simply move from InDesigner, from Adobe over to Publisher. Meanwhile, something which is also very interesting, which I think I should bring to you guys' notice, is by default, Publisher has the studio link. So the studio link actually helps you link up what you have with Designer and also photo directly in Publisher. So you can combine both products and get that perfect and awesome looking design that you want to go for. So these things are here. For those who are excited about this, you can get it at 50% off, huge slash sale. There's also an iPad version, which also comes with its own set of interesting updates and also lovely tool sets that you will be able to play with. So this is more like it. Affinity Photo is here, Affinity Designer, Affinity Publisher, all at 50% off. And yes, you can grab this for 90 days, play with it, and once you're ready, you can go ahead and make a purchase. Tell me what you guys think about this one in the comment section. And of course, if you like this video or you learned something from this, you can go ahead and give it a like, and don't forget to share with a friend. And if you're new here, it's going to be amazing for you to hit the subscribe button and also turn on notifications so that you don't miss the next video or the next update. And until I see you guys again with a tutorial update, Free Friday, Tutorial Tuesday, tips and tricks, things like this. Peace.